Okay, Rabbi Sachs, I'll behave myself.
I doubt that very much, Rabbi. Good evening. I'm Jeffrey Sachs. Welcome to this gathering of the worldwide Yeshivat Hamivtar community. Like so many of you, it's impossible to imagine that Yeshivat Hamivtar, as we remember it, sadly, does not exist. Just the other day, somebody called me up and said they have a young man. He described somebody who sounded a lot like me 35 years ago. Wanted to know where would be a good place for him to learn. And I said, I have the perfect place. Yeshivat Hamivtar. It's in the shopping center, 1988. But sadly, although the yeshiva as a physical entity no longer exists the way that we remember it, for all of us, it's, of course, still very much alive, because so much of what the yeshiva was about was the relationships, the chavruta, tarte mashma, the learning together, and the friendships and relationships that were formed with each other, with our fellow talmidim, and of course with our great Rabbeim. And over the years we've had opportunities to gather together in the real world, and for quite a while we've been planning on having another one of those events, at least for those of us here in Israel, to gather together. But then, darn it, something always happens. There's a worldwide pandemic, or Rabbi Brovender takes a step off a stair and lands on his shoulder instead of his foot, or a war breaks out, or things like that. So we thought it was time to just get together, and particularly since Eitz Sarah Yaakov, we're in a bad spot. There's no way around that. We thought it would be time to, besides just the sheer pleasure of seeing each other, to have a little chizuk, to meet together, to talk together, to learn together, and to hear some thoughts from our Rabbeim, from Rabbi Brovender, from Rabbi Ebner, from Rabbi Schrader, and I think there are a few other former faculty members amongst us, and from each other, and to talk a little bit about the situation, with the hope that soon we'll be able to gather together in the real world on happier, more joyous, more triumphant occasions. It's my great pleasure to pass the microphone over to our good friend, Rabbi David Fine, who's the driving force behind the Hamivtar Alumni Association and is in charge of so many other important initiatives for Torah and teaching and learning and the rabbinate here in Israel with his Barkai organization and so many of his other great activities. I would just say you are all joining us here in one of our virtual classrooms of Web Yeshiva. Some of you are new to Web Yeshiva, and shame on you, because it's a great opportunity to keep learning principally with Rabbi Brovender, who does a tremendous amount of teaching online with us at Web Yeshiva. Join us. The best thing you can do, the best way to support Rabbi Brovender's work is to join a shir. If you're unable to do that, we take tax-deductible donations, and you can make one of those at our website as well, to show your support of what we're doing here on Web Yeshiva, bringing Torah live, interactive Torah, the kind of Torah that we all benefited from back in the days in the yeshiva, to people the world over. But now I pass it over to you, Rabbi Fine. You are all welcome to put comments in the chat. David will try to moderate that as we go along, and you will be able to open your mics and speak freely as we get to the end of the evening.
Okay, good evening here in Israel. Thank you very much, Jeff. It really is a pleasure and an honor for me to have been asked to do this. It's very wonderful to see so many familiar and a few unfamiliar faces on the screen. So we don't have an unlimited amount of time, and I haven't slept for nights because I was afraid that I might actually have to cut Rabbi Ebner off in mid-sentence. I think we should just start by saying, I'll start by saying something very personal, and that is that my son, Amiel, who's in the army right now, who's in Bach-San Chanim, outside of Kiryat Gat, got engaged on Friday. And he was supposed to get engaged a few weeks ago in a very different scene, in a very different environment, and it barely happened now. But I think that really, and many of the texts that I got when it happened right before Shabbos were, oh, thank God, this is what we needed, this is what we needed. But to be very honest with you, we were very uncomfortable about, doing this, when trying to do something which was happy when there was so much, tragedy going on all around us. So I think I start that way because I think that there's a lot of bad and evil and tragedy here. but it seems to me that there's some positive things, if one can say that, about what's going on here. You know, most talk about the unity and the great amounts of chesed that is being done. So I think I just want that to frame our discussion. But let's get right to our esteemed Rabbanim. So I'll start with you, Rabbi Brovender. You came to live in Yerushalayim, if I'm not mistaken, in 1965. That's a long time, right? You've seen the Yom Kippur, the 6 Day War, the Yom Kippur War, and now this, and many other things in between. So I'm wondering, do you feel that this is different? How, just basically, I think everyone here is very interested to know about how you feel and what you're thinking about the current situation in which we find ourselves.
Thank you, Rabbi Fine. You know, the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchot Avodah Zarah tries to explain to us who Abram Avinu was. And for the Rambam, it seems to me that it was largely in his head. He was really a philosopher, in the sense that philosophy answers questions. It gets to someplace. But that's what the Rambam says. But he doesn't explain to us what the difficulty with Sodom and Amorah was. Why did Abram Avinu not have complete faith that God will do the right thing? Why was Abram Avinu confused about what the right thing is? I mean, this is a question that you could ask every year. But to us this year, it's very special because today we really are confronted by difficulties in understanding who we are and what we're doing. And that's the difference, I think, between the wars, the earlier wars that we participated in, and the war that we are participating in now. In the earlier wars, I mean, it was army against an army. And we knew about that. We knew that when an army faces an army, that's reasonable. It's a reasonable event. But when an army faces a ragtag group of people who are not in an army exactly and can't be limited by the fact that they are in the army, we don't know exactly what we're supposed to do. In other words, we think, when I say we, I mean myself, that we have to exert a punishment for what they did. But we don't really know how much of a punishment, and we don't really know what it is that we're expected to do. So from that point of view, we inherited the mantle of Abram Avinu, that there are things that are not perfectly clear, and that you have to be able to connect to different ideas and different demands. And those ideas and those demands become seriously important. So if I have something to contribute to this discussion in the manner that some of you may know me, my contribution is it's difficult to know what it is, how we should react. I mean, we have all these pressures. We have people who say one thing and other people say another thing, and the Americans say a third thing. And we are sort of stuck here. So I hope that people wiser than myself will be able to say something that will clarify where we stand.
Rabbi Brovender, I was going to follow up on this later, but I guess I'll ask you now. I came to visit you a week or two ago, and as we all know, you live in a section of Jerusalem which we would define as Haredi, and I think many of us, or at least the media, is trying to emphasize the uptick in Haredi drafting and the greater participation in society. Is that something you see happening? And if so, do you think it's like it will be a long-term kind of thing, or it's just something as a result of what's going on, but won't really?
There are signs that might indicate that is happening, but they're only signs. It's not as though it's happening. It's definitely not happening.
Okay.
Sorry to disappoint.
Okay. Okay, let's turn to you, Rabbi Ebner. Rabbi Ebner, I think many of us here and many people who are not here were very much influenced by your shmuzin that you gave in yeshiva, the Musar shmuzin. I still have my notes that I took on many of them, and I remember many of them quite well. So I think that you really helped many of us sort of interpret our modern day lives in terms of Torah, in terms of the way we should be thinking about things. So I'm wondering if you could just tell us what you think, how we should be thinking about what's going on and interpreting the facts on the ground.
First, I'll just tell you what I feel as I scroll down the names. I'm not seeing all the faces, and that is, I feel a lot of. It's the first time in a few weeks that when I get certain messages that come from a grandchild through a grandchild, I feel good. But they only come every couple of days. But I feel tremendously encouraged by everybody. I'm seeing just all the names, and I'm going back in time, and it's like there's a oneness. And I'd say that's the most important, the thing that we had the problem. I want to tell you that before the war, so I was carrying around in my mind for weeks and weeks and months, indeed, a picture of what was taking place in Knesset Yisrael, right? When the vote came and there was celebration. And I don't know if any of you saw this, how the winning side in the vote, they were gathering like people, how you pick up, can you see I'm picking up this cell phone, and they hold it and they all get together, the winning party, and they're all happy, and they're
Rabbi Ebner, today it's called a selfie.
a selfie. They took selfies of 62 people. And it was wonderful because Haredim were joining with these, and and I felt terrible. This is just awful. It's not because of I'm like on this side or that side, but the pilug, the Maral says, Goy echad ba'aretz. The Maral says, to make it very short, in a non-Maharalian fashion, to make it very short, our being in this land is to the degree we are Goy echad ba'aretz. And it's these words that we have all the time of Kamsa, Bar Kamsa, and the people who didn't denounce it and everything. So we were living through this break. And the tragedy is the one thing that some of you probably have seen this site, the feel-good site about the war. Have you seen it? Can people respond?
I haven't seen it.
What?
What is it?
They
I
only
haven't
the
seen
one
it.
that gives you
Haven't seen
only
it. Haven't
good
heard of it.
news. It only gives you good news. And I've been watching this good news, and the most popular thing is Jews throughout the world singing, and it begins "Ay Acheinu Kol Beis Yisrael," and underneath it says Lisbon, wherever, and then it goes to Teaneck, and then it goes, and they're all singing these songs, right? The real question is, can we really constitute it? Because otherwise we're lost. What we say, what we know from Tisha B'Av, and we certainly have another Tisha B'Av, whether we can get this together. Goy echad ba'aretz. So I just, all I can say is this getting together. I've never done anything like this before. Seeing all the names of the people who are here takes me back. All the names. Can't say I go back 41 years, but I certainly go back 38 years and moving forward. And I remember all of you, and so it's wonderful to know that we're together. The question of whether we can get together, I don't know. I'm not expert on Haredi society. I had my doubts Rabbi Brovender has no doubts. I had my doubts along this when I saw these people online where everything is good and everybody wants to dance together and it's wonderful. But I saw websites that say a lot of Haredim, thousands of Haredim are going into the I don't know. But we ourselves, I think that's what you have to be Mahu Rachum, Mahu Echad. We have to be Echad also. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi
And
Ebner.
as far, Rabbi Fine, as
Yes.
far as you don't need your notes, all those sichot are online. Nobody ever listens to them, but they are online. And I don't make any money off of it. No advertisements.
Okay. I think that I share, and I think many people share your at least fear that, that a lot of what we're seeing now may not, continue. And in terms of the Echad, Goy Echad Ba'aretz. And I think that we're thinking that not only will that be a tragedy in and of itself, but it will sort of retroactively make everything that's happening now seem like it's very much in vain. So taking off from what Rabbi Ebner said, I'd like to ask Rabbi Schrader. Rabbi Schrader, yes, you were a teacher, our Rebbe in Yeshiva, our very beloved Rebbe. I was in your shir for 4 years straight, and I still maintain a very warm relationship with all of you, but especially with you, Rabbi Schrader. So,
But you don't have his notes?
I do. I can show them to you. But besides being in the yeshiva, you were also a community rabbi, Rabbi Schrader, right? You were on a yeshuv, and you were also a rabbi in a congregation in Efrat for some time. So, in many ways in yeshiva, it's sort of easier, right? Meaning everyone's sort of there to hear you. And but in a community is made up of a lot of different kinds of people, and it's very hard as a rabbi, as we all know, to maintain unity. So what's your perspective on what Rabbi Ebner said? What do you think about the future possibilities in terms of maintaining some of the unity we're seeing now?
I think Rabbi Ebner and Rabbi Brovender might agree with what I'm about to say, even though I didn't hear them say it. The unity which is currently coming out, there's almost no question that it's not going to be maintained in terms of the external show, but what it's showing is a deeper unity that's been there all along. It's not that suddenly we got together. We are united. It's not that this past Shabbos we daven Mincha, Mi Kamcha Yisrael Goyachad Ba'aretz, and the Shabbos before we didn't say it or didn't think it. There is a deeper unity within Am Yisrael that doesn't always show itself, and Baruch Hashem, at this very crucial time, it is showing itself. what will happen in the future? How long will this external expression of that inner unity be maintained? I don't know. I certainly don't know if it's going to be maintained after the Bezrat Hashem, the current war is over. And I don't even know if it's going to last throughout the war. I've already heard things today that have indicated cracks in that unity. But there's an understanding that we're all in this together, and and we're going to remember this. You know, one of the things that many of you will remember is Rabbi Brovender's Sikha on Yom Yerushalayim, in which he would recall what the feeling was like when the Six-Day War took place, and the unity that was there then. That was a unity within the context of a victory. That was also an expression of unity that was there, was expressing something that had been sublimated all along, and was coming out like now. But now it's not that we're a peacock. We're not showing off our grandeur. We're not showing off our colors. We're understanding that we're all in this together. And the sense is that, as opposed to our thinking that the diaspora Jewry identify with Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael when we're successful, and perhaps not as much when we're not, or maybe not at all sometimes. No, the opposite is true. The danger that, and the tragedy that took place, that brought everybody together. That brought Yordim out of the woodwork, flights by flights by flights. And I have no reason to think that they're all going to remain here afterwards, or maybe any of them. What do we all know? But the identification of all Am Yisrael, including, I understand, many intermarried Jews, with the Jewish nation is very powerful. And it's there for everyone to see. And even if it disappears once again, it doesn't mean that it's gone away. It means that we just won't see it the way we see it right now. But it's,
Well, I like that way.
there.
I like that way of looking at it much better than the way I framed it, because when I said that if it disappears, then it will retroactively mean that it was in vain, I see your answer as being much more optimistic. So thank you. As long as we have you, Rabbi Shrader, I want to change the subject. I remember being there at the moment that you sort of dreamt up the idea of JLIC. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was after Matthew Eisenfeld's tragic death, who was a student in yeshiva. So I think we can't let this go by without asking you. We're all watching, many of us with horror, about what's going on many of the campuses in the United States, and I guess around the world as well. You've worked with college students and their guides and leaders for many, many, many years. So can you just tell us about your thoughts about that? I mean, personally, it seems to me that, can we really could parents in the United States continue telling their children to go to a secular college? And I guess the overall question for both of you, Rabbi Brovender apparently had to leave because he's not feeling well, is there really a place for Jews outside of Israel anymore? Rabbi Shrader.
The question of whether there's a place for Jews outside of Israel, I'm not going to try to answer. Most of the Jews in the world are still there. Every day, the up and coming soon majority of Jews in the world being in Eretz Yisrael becomes closer and closer. But even when Israel overtakes the diaspora numerically, it's not because there's going to be a mass aliyah. It's just because the procreation in Eretz Yisrael seems to be stronger than than in the diaspora, and it's not something that we can gloat over. It's a situation in terms of what's going to be the at the same time that Jewish people have been able to open themselves up and take pride in being Jewish. I don't know the relationship, but antisemites, Sonei Yisrael, they also see this as a grand opportunity to express themselves, and they can get away with it, and they can say they can talk about being in favor of murder, and wishing that greater atrocities would take place, and it's all acceptable now. It's all acceptable. The cat is out of the box. The halacha biyadu she'esav sonei es Yaakov. I can't say it about this one, that one, or the other one, but the hatred is showing its ugly head, and you can't ignore that on a political level, President Biden and the Prime Minister of England, whose name I forget, and a few Macron, whatever his name is, they all have shown positive expression and identification with the Jews in Israel and in their own country, but it is now legitimate to be a Sonei Yisrael. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to walk the streets of New York, or of Champaign, or of Paris, or of Nice,
or the hallways of the United States Congress,
or the hallways of the United States Congress, where the Jews are disproportionately represented, both in the Senate and in the House. But
So, Rabbi Schrader, I'm sorry to interrupt. So the provocative question of is there a place for Jews in America or outside of Israel? So yes, you're right. We could ignore that. But based on what you're saying now about that, it's okay to be Sonei Israel, right? Can you, Rabbi Menachem Schrader, after all your experience with university students and what's going on in universities in a way that most other people in the Orthodox world are not aware of, can you, with a good mind, tell somebody to go to a secular college in the United States?
I never, except on one occasion, and I think it was a girl going from Stern to Queens. For her, it was particularly a case. Never suggested that any student go to a secular university. JLIC wasn't founded in order that people should feel good about going to a secular university. It was reacting to a situation that was as clear as day, and that is undeniable. And I can talk about this at length, which I'm not going to. But there is students graduating from Yeshiva High School today, the great bulk of them, are not ready after they finished finally, and maybe even went to Israel for a year, are not willing to spend half a day learning Torah. They're just not in YP, and not in EMC or whatever it's called today, and not in anything. They had enough. Halavai that they remain Orthodox, and it's not a simple matter. And the assumption that they go to secular university and become not frum is lack of understanding of what the actual situation is in the yeshiva high schools themselves. But we should be there to help them, and that's what we're there for. Should anyone go there? A student comes and asks anybody, should I go to YU or should I go to, don't ask me where, I'm not even going to mention it, Torah. There's no question that they're better off. Are there individuals for whom that might not be perfect? Are there individuals who might do better in secular university? Yeah, I suppose there are. I mean, I know there are, but as you can't turn that into a rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is certainly that Mistama, everyone's better off at YU. Can I mention students who went to YU from Yeshivat Hamivtar and might have done better somewhere else? Yeah, there's no question that there were such students. But the rule of thumb certainly should be to be within as much of a Torah environment as possible, and that's at YU and Turo if you're going to go to college, not in secular university. But they're there, and
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry about the wrong assumption. I think I knew that, and I guess I sort of asked the question a little bit of a wrong way, but I think you cleared it up. I'm getting a question from Rabbi Michael Sunshine. Thank you very much. Who's asking, and maybe you could take this, Rabbi Ebner, and also, feel free to comment on some of the things that that Rabbi Shrader said. So Rabbi Michael Sunshine is asking, could you ask about the nature/source of anti-Semitism in the world? On one hand, we can find ourselves surprised by the anti-Semitism and the proud display of it. On the other hand, it's not a surprise, but I wonder why there is such a deep-seated anti-Semitism in people throughout the world, throughout history.
There are at least, without exaggeration, at least 100 good explanations. And if you want to read an essay by Robert Merton, a Meshumad who was the chairman of the sociology department at Columbia, you'll find out that Jews are the problem the anti-Semites say Jews are we don't like them because they're X, or we don't like them because they're not X. It doesn't make any difference. It's not rational. I'm not but there are just so many reasons, so everybody can. It's like going into a restaurant and you're going to find some reason that appeals to you. That's the reality. I don't know the incidents. I used to be a sociologist. I used to be able to know statistics. I don't know what it is. It's obviously acceptable to come out of the woodwork. And here there is really a question, and the question is there a future for Jewish communities in Chutz La'aretz? I'm not talking about whether there's a future for Torah per se. Is there a future for Jews? That's a serious question. I do want to comment, and this is relevant to what Rabbi Shrader was talking about, is something that's been bothering me for a long time. To the degree all the people here are connected to Yeshivat Hamivtar, but if you want to know the remnants of Yeshivat Hamivtar, the remnants of Yeshivat Hamivtar are in Asher Be'eretz HaTzvi. Okay, that's the yeshiva that Rabbi Sussman and myself and Rabbi Todd Berman are connected with. But the difference is that we take specifically kids right out of high school. So when I first came to Yeshivat Hamivtar 41 years ago, when it was on Sderot HaMeiri 11, I don't know if there are names here, I think, who are there still. And so when there were only a couple of 18-year-olds, but 18-year-olds were 18-year-old. Today, 18-year-olds are relative to that, about 14-year-olds. So relevant to the issue of going into a secular university, there's another kind of reality. And, and that reality, it has American kind of like overtones that may also have overtones about not just whether you're frum or not, but whether you're connected to the kind of ethos that is here, and is not necessarily. We could talk about divisions in Israel society that have created something of the problem, but I think we're all on the same page about it. I don't think that anybody really thinks that we did something bad. We, meaning in Israel, did something bad that caused this, right? So, but there's a whole different world. You're living in a different world, and basically, I agree. If kid asks me today about if they ask me where they should go, I said first, to university, the kids in Eretz Hatzvi, I said first explain to me why you don't want to go to YU. All right, so but anti-Semitism. Rabbi Sunshine, it's a pleasure to know you there, and I see you smiling at me.
Done except for the
Somebody needs to mute
which I'm gonna
themselves.
finish tonight, and I will send you it by the morning.
Sorry. Go on, Rabbi Ebner.
No, I just want to say I'm thinking. My wife tells me not to say that I'm an old man, but when I saw all these faces and all these names, I thought of the address of sorry, I'm forgetting names. Okay, the Yerushalmi Tzaddik, anyway, who was the father of their Sirim. Whose name am I forgetting?
Rabbi Levin.
Rabbi Levin. That when they had a gathering, right? He said, "I want you to know one thing," in his honor, and what was then called Beit Ha'am. He started by saying, "I want you to know that there was an old man who loved you very much." So, what can I say? For me, this is a little bit of nachos. Okay, just seeing people, and I hope we can meet actually in person. Sit down. You're welcome to come by and sit down and learn a little bit. I don't teach on Web Yeshiva, but I'm around ready to sit in a base medrash. Baruch Hashem.
I want to thank you, Rabbi Ebner. Well, everyone is more than welcome. You could come stay at my house and go to Eretz Hatzvi and learn with Rabbi Ebner. I want to change directions again. For those of us who have been in Israel, and even for those who have not, this past year, I'd say prior to the war, it's been war. It's been a year of deep, deep, deep division. Around just a few hundred yards away from where I am, I live right up above the apartment of Yariv Levin, who is the justice minister, and not a Thursday night, Friday morning, Saturday night go by where I'm woken up or unable to sleep because of the thousands and thousands of people that were protesting against the judicial reform. So on one hand, religious Zionism was in a tremendous crisis, right? Even before that, it seemed to me at least that there was a left wing of the both religiously and politically of religious Zionism, and then a right wing. And now, in many ways, those divisions seem to be even more pronounced, right? But on the other hand, it seems to me that perhaps this is religious Zionism's great moment. Hopefully, or I would think that many more people would come on Aliyah and see that the future of the Jewish people is here in Eretz Yisrael. So, how do you see? I agree that the word religious Zionism could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but how do you see religious Zionism? Can it grow from this? Will it continue to, deteriorate? What are your thoughts on that? Rabbi Ebner, why don't we start with you? And before you both start, I'm not seeking to make this political, even though obviously you can't discuss this without some, attention to that. But I'm really looking for the religious response. What should the religious response be?
The religious response should be that everybody should take the Torah seriously. Okay, it's as simple as that. Now, that simple solution is the problem that there are so many different things that people define as taking Torah seriously, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on about talking. If you want to go back to Yeshivat Hamivtar, what we talk, people think learning is about something, okay? At Yeshivat Hamivtar, we focused on learning it, okay? I remember I was in the second Atid, in England, the thing that they put in Easter, Limud conference in Portsmouth, and somebody yelled at me. I was teaching Shir and Rambam, and somebody came over afterwards and yelled at me that there was a guy, okay, there's a guy who was sitting there. I'm doing this a live audio-visual, like they were sitting there without the yarmulke off. And how could I teach Rambam and allow somebody to sit there without a yarmulke on? I said, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? The issue, I think the best thing we can do is to try to get people back to Yeshivat Hamivtar to learn. I have my experience in life, and I've done this even with non-Jews, is that anybody, if you say to people, I'm not trying to convert you and I'm not to have an agenda, but all these years, hundreds and hundreds of years, let's say all this Jewish genius went into these books. So instead of coming with an attitude to it, let's just sit down and learn it. And I've never found, and I've had the opportunity to even teach non-Jews, but it's certainly a lot of Jews, everybody who sits down and actually learns Torah, not about Torah. To quote the late, very revered Rabbi Moshe Bezdin, it's not about it, it's it, right? So I say that's the best thing we can do. It's there. And the notion that there are mea panim l'Torah and that we can look, it's happened in the world, in the yeshiva world, for some extent. When I spent the summer in Lakewood in 1964, in Lakewood Yeshiva, and I have good stories about that, but we'll leave them alone. Okay, there weren't any Hasidic Svarim, right? Now they're learning Hasidic Svarim in all the Lithuanian yeshivas, right? They're open to it. That's over. So the question is, can people just learn Torah? That there is to move from Yeshivat Hamivtar to our Torah. Rabbi Schrader, you get the move. It's like it's there, right? We have to plumb it. I hope that the people who are in Yeshivat Hamivtar, I hope to have a sense that there was an enlightenment that took place there, and it's there. It's possible, but you have to be open, and you have to speak the other person's language. You have to know where they're coming from, okay? And I would hope that today, at least, that what's being opened up here in this whole thing is the possibility of dialogue. And the question is, there have to be institutional forms, and somebody has to get on it and say, how, even starting now, how are we going to continue this dialogue when this all ends? Whether we end it or the United States ends it for us, what can we do, practically speaking? And the answer has to be with people learning and reading and saying that this is the root of it all. I mean, that has to be certainly part of the answer. Okay, that's
Rabbi Shrader, same question.
I remember Rabbi Ebner's answer.
Rabbi
I
Ebner
remember the question he was
studiously
asking.
avoided a practical answer, but no, I'm just giving you a hard time, Rabbi Ebner. I understand what you're saying.
No. That's the only practical answer I can give.
But Rabbi Ebner, okay, thank you, but it's with all due respect, it's a little let's say Pollyannish. I mean, it's certainly the right answer. I think we all agree about that, but I don't see Rav Tau, sitting down to learn with Rabbeni Lau anytime soon. How do we make that happen?
So
I'm not worried about Rav Tau and Benny Lau. I'm worried about somebody from Ein Harod and me. Okay, what am I worried about? I'm worried about that. David. Okay.
The Sachs reminded me of the original question. The question of religious Zionism. I didn't know that this war had anything to do with religious Zionism, frankly. Am Yisrael is being attacked.
Rabbi Shrader, I didn't mean to suggest that it did. What I meant is that it certainly comes at a time when religious Zionism was, let's put it in its best light, struggling to sort of find itself, or who was really speaking for it. So I'm not saying that the war was about religious Zionism. What I was asking is, what will it mean for religious Zionism, and can it be a step to which to lead to good things or bad things?
I'm a little daunted by Rabbi Ebner hearing me. It's all right. You'll hear, and you're free to react. The whole country is religious. Maybe there are a few people who are not. I don't know who they are. The levels of observance varies quite a bit. But basically, the Jews in Eretz Israel are religious people. There are those who do more. There are those who do better. There are those who know more. There are those who learn. There are those who look up to everybody. There are those who look down on a lot of people. But basically, the Jewish people are keeping the Torah, and it's. I don't mean to be. I don't mean that there's a great deal of superficiality going on. Quite the contrary. What's being kept is being kept in a very deep way. The number of people who are making Kiddush on Shabbos is very high. No one has dared try to find out exactly what that is. You might suddenly find out that Shabbos is important to a great portion of Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. The fact that there are Datiim who keep more is very important to many people who don't keep as much. And the number of people who in the language of the Gemara in Chulin, who would prefer a kosher piece of meat to a non-kosher piece of meat, given the choice of having the option, is very high. Is very high, and no one has suggested that the army make sure that there's treif meat for people who want it. It's just not the case. And Shabbos is the day off, and it's a question of allowing the Jewish people to move into the religiosity that they identify with, slowly but surely, as in many small steps. And it doesn't matter how long it's going to take, whether it's going to take a year or 5 years or 10 years or 100 years or 1,000 years or more. The slowly but surely we're coming around, and organizations like your own, David, and many other organizations as well, who have different approaches to how this will be done, are making their impact, and they're making an impact not because of like a missionary kind of effort, not at all. They're keying in to the religious desire in Am Yisrael, in Eretz Yisrael. And it'll take time to develop, both on a personal level and on a communal level and on a synagogue level and on a national level. But it's taking place, and I don't see any other direction. I know that we're having trouble in terms of chinuch with the Dati boys. It's a real problem. There's a lot to talk about there, but this isn't the venue in which we're likely to try to deal with that. Even that, Bezrat Hashem, it'll turn around. It's going to take a lot of eye-opening and thought and understanding in order to get that done. I hope I related to your question.
Thank you. I think I just put in the chat, but I'm not sure. Yes, there's Rabbi Schrader's words made me think of something I read today. That Omar Barak, who's a very, very left-wing personality and author in Israeli society, who always said that he referred to say that he was Jewish, he would only say that he was Israeli. So he wrote something very beautiful that I saw today, that now he wants to be Jewish. It's a little bit more profound than the way I'm making it out to be, but you said about Kiddush, and so he says that he wanted to light Shabbos candles this past Friday night. He says he didn't even have candles in his house, and when he finally got them, he didn't even know what bracha to say. So he said the bracha on the Hanukkah candles. Yeah, because that's what he knew. But Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Okay, we only have 8 or 9 minutes left. So this has all been about me. I hope this is just a tip of the iceberg. I tried to cover as many different topics as I can. Maybe we should do this again sometime soon. But there are a lot of very significant people's faces that I'm seeing here. So I'd like to leave some time for. Well, I see a question here from Marcus Freed. Hi, Rabbi David. I have a question for Rabbi Ebner. You want to ask it, Marcus?
Sure. Yes. Good evening, Shavua Tov. Hi. So wonderful seeing you all, and inspiring seeing so many dear friends on the camera as well. I'm finding a lot of people are scared. I'm currently in Los Angeles, particularly on the ground here. People are scared of leaving their houses, sometimes scared of going to events. The question is one of what message of Chizuk would you share with people? Sometimes I've been sharing sort of emunah, everything's going to end okay, it's going to be fine in the end, we're going to get there, bitachon. But Rabbi Shrader and Rabbi Ebner, are there some words that you might give us to convey to people out in the diaspora?
Rabbi Abram, please speak first.
Thank you, Marcus. Very important.
Thank you.
Rabbi Ebner, why don't you go first?
I'm sorry. Marcus, I'm going to be very, very, when to speak to people and to speak about, I don't think, I would say if I had 5 minutes to sit down with, and I've done this, you and I have done this. We were supposed to meet in some place in London and sit down and learn something. If they say, if they want to speak, they want chizuk, I'd say to them, you have 15 minutes. If you have 15 minutes and just sit down, open up a siddur. Just open up a siddur. They're always siddurim, you someplace, right? And you say, this is what is the first thing a Jew finds in the siddur, right? What do we do? And it's somebody from nowhere. Modeh ani lefonecha. Modeh. Modeh ani lefonecha. Melech chai v'kayam shechzarta bi nishmati. B'chemla rabba emunatecha. Think about starting the day, the wonder of life. And that is where we stand in front of God, before God, in the wonder of life. And you have 15 minutes to learn the words of Hebrew with them. You could go through, for somebody from the English, you could say, what does, sometimes I'll start with Bereshis Bara, what does the word mean, right? How do you translate it? And it just opens. I can tell you the names. I'm not going to tell you names of people who have wound up in the yeshiva because they had one shiur that just opened up a world. Not an inspirational thing, a learning of it. Okay, so that's it. I could even say with open up a siddur, and this is the first thing you see in Aleph. This is an Aleph, and this is a beit, right? You could ask them, why does the Torah not start with the first letter, right? And I can talk for about 10 minutes, and people, and I have done it, and people want to talk for more than 10 minutes, right? It's not going to make them put on tefillin. It might not make them eat kosher, but they might have an interest in learning a little bit more. And that's what, back to Torah or Torah. That's what I could tell. Marcus, you know what I'm saying. Very little of a long discussion that we've had before.
Absolutely. Thank you. Wonderful seeing you.
Yeah. Schrader.
Marcus, it is said that there are 200,000 Israelis in Los Angeles. That's a big city. That's a big city in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know how many of them picked themselves up and came to serve in Tzahal for this war, although the number seems to be significant. I have absolutely no idea what it was.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a calling. We will have to, who's we? We is the Torah representatives in Los Angeles, Marcus, this is an obligating point here.
I'm in.
No way out.
Committed.
Are going to have to pick up the mantle and make sure that if there is any leftover religious inspiration when everyone comes back to Los Angeles, or whoever does come back to Los Angeles, that there will be those who can help them with it. That, I forgot his name already. I mean, they're not all in Pico, and they're going to have to be. They're going to have to be Friday night Kabbalat Shabbats. That will be there with a meal to follow it. There's going to have to be a Shabbos morning davening that starts like 11:30 or something like that, which might be too early still. For people who are interested in coming, there's going to have to be havdalahs for people who didn't keep Shabbos at all. That's what it's going to be all about. There's going to have to be shiurim during the week that you'll make a catchier phrase than me, but basically that says what is Judaism, or what is Torah, or what does God want from us, or something like that. And we're going to have to try to help them come along and it will be kashtem misham. Let it start in Los Angeles. Let it start in New York. Let it start in London. Let it start in some other middle of the nowhere, in Berlin. There's a need to be there for the returnees who will certainly be coming back, to help them try to make sense of what this business is, that suddenly they woke up like Omar Barak to find out that they're not just the Israeli, or not just someone in Los Angeles, but that they're a Yehudi. We're going to have to try to do it. And how much will come out of it? Hashem should help us succeed. But we're going to have to try.
Thank you, Rabbi Shrader. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Shrader. Any other questions, either in the chat or just feel free to speak up? Anybody? All right. Well, go
I
on.
think Rabbi Fine, we want to thank you.
Could I ask something? Sorry,
Sure.
I was looking for the button.
Who's that? Yitzchak Rappaport speaking?
Yitzhak Rappaport, yes.
Okay.
Yitzhak Rappaport.
Last question, then we'll wrap up.
At least from where I'm standing, I'm in Poland, in Warsaw, but we also have internet, obviously, so we see everything that's happening all around the world. And there seems to be unity is great, but there's also a lot of, or at least some, you could call them self-hating Jews or whatever, people who aren't not Jewish, but they're not pro-Israeli, or they're even pro-Palestinian, and I find it difficult. I'm not living in confrontation with these people, but I find it difficult to explain to the people who ask me, how can this be, right? So I'm not asking how to confront people who are Jewish but are not, let's say, pro-Israeli, but how to deal with people, how to explain to people this phenomenon in a way that doesn't, because it's all, both from Jews I get these questions, and from non-Jews who don't understand, why do you have Jews who are like this, and Jews who say, how can there be, how can this be? And so some kind of, I don't know, ideas, guidelines.
Thank you, Yitzhak. Thank you. I've gotten a few messages that people don't have all that much time, so we could just keep the answers brief. Rabbi Schrader.
I don't know the answer to the questions that people are asking you, Yitzhak. I really don't. And sometimes you have to say, I don't know the answer. I mean, if you do know an answer, it's great, and maybe Rabbi Ebner will be able to give you an answer very shortly. But if you don't know the answer, you can say you don't know the answer. The rabbis, Rashi, who knew quite a bit, sometimes says he doesn't know the answer. And we certainly don't know the answer to our current situations. So Yitzchak, you have to work with those who aren't falling off, who do want to come to you, who do want to learn Torah, who do want to keep a mitzvah, any mitzvah, who do want to hear what you have to say, even if they don't want to do anything. And you have to make a kehillah out of them. And if you do that, and as I'm sure you're doing, people will want to be part of your kehillah without knowing all the answers. Just being part of the kehillah is itself something very powerful, something very satisfying. To be part of the Goy Echad Ba'aretz is something very important. And don't try to present yourself or anyone else as someone who has the answers to everything. We don't have the answers to everything. That was an important message, I think, in Yeshivat Hamivtar, that we don't have the answers for everything, but we're going to try to learn the Torah and understand as much as we can.
Before Rabbi Ebner, I just want to say, Rabbi Shrader, that I so appreciate you saying that, because that was what drove me to Yeshivat Hamivtar, that exact point, and I think it's a critical point. Rabbi Ebner.
I know that you might be expecting me to argue with Rabbi Shrader. Perhaps Rabbi Shrader is expecting it as also. I agree 100%. Right? Right? If you can say
they
you
agree
can by this,
100%, and Rabbi Ebner has become a spokesperson for Or Torah. That's it.
strange things happen. It must be a Muslim Mashiach then, Rabbi said. Right? Good questions. Right? That's what you have to if the questions are good questions, that's what you begin, validate the questions. And then you see where the conversation goes. There are no simple answers. And oftentimes Rabbi Nachman says, and it's true, that the shortest distance between 2 points is not necessarily a straight line. We're all looking for the straight line. Everybody wants a quick answer. I understand. I'm not knocking it. But sometimes you have to go, there are the different versions of digging up the treasure under the bridge in the royal city or in the dirt floor of the home, right? Those are all different ways of, right? So you don't know exactly. It's important to know a little bit about the person who's asking the question. All right. But beyond that, I have nothing to say.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna say one
Rabbi
thing.
Fine, Rabbi Fine, I want you to have the last word. I just want to thank you for facilitating this. I want to thank Rabbi Shrader and Rabbi Ebner, and of course Rabbi Brovender, who had to step away. I think it should be mentioned that Rabbi Brovender made a strong effort to be with us. I think it's not a secret, and he wouldn't mind us sharing that he's been really struggling with some health issues, and we should all keep Rabbi Brovender and Rabbi Riskin in our tefillot for Refuah Shlema. For them and for Kol Cholei Yisrael, V'Kol Ptzuei Yisrael, and everybody who's missing, and everybody who needs a tefillah, which of course includes
Everybody.
all of us.
Includes everybody.
All of us. And
Amen. So I too want to.
And I want to just remind people, there is a Yeshivat Hamivtar alumni Facebook page. If you're on the Facebook, you should join it to keep up to date on things. And I'm sure that everybody here, students and staff alike, are happy to continue this conversation. We hope we'll be able to have more of these in the real world, online as need. And if anybody wants to follow up anything and you need contact information for anybody, you can be in touch with us at WebYeshiva, and I'm sure the rabbis and your old friends and old chavrusas would be happy for us to share contact information so that people can continue the conversation. But again, thank you, David. And you can have the last word, but then we can leave the classroom open for people that want to stay and chat and finish the Rugelach in the corner.
Okay. No, all I wanted to say is Jeff keeps on thanking me, but it was really he who was behind all of this. So I thank Jeff. I thank the rabbis as well, and a refuah shlema to Rabbi Brovender. And I just wanted to conclude by saying that for me, I think this shows that the spirit behind Yeshivat Hamivtar is really still truly alive, even if the building is not the same building or whatever it may be. I think that just the range of people who are on this Zoom in and of itself says it all. And I think the point that was just spoken about that, any question is allowed, and we don't really necessarily always have the answers. I think that's a very, very big breath of fresh air in today's world. So hopefully we'll have a chance to do this again. Everyone should be well, and as Rabbi Sachs said, we should our forces should be successful speedily, and all the refuah shlema that everyone needs, and the hostages should be released as speedily as possible. Everyone have a good evening, day, wherever you may be, and thank you again.
Amen.